Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, July 22nd through Sunday, July 28th, 2024. Thank you so much for joining me. This week, I actually wanted to start with the chart for Sunday, July 21st, even though technically that's just outside of the scope of this forecast. There is a major event that has just transpired on Sunday, or maybe will just transpire, depending on when you're viewing this. But yeah, so basically Sunday, July 21st, there's a full moon happening at 29 degrees Capricorn. This is a particularly potent one. I think many of us have been feeling this building up even all of this past week, if that makes sense. So the reason why is because this full moon has a very tight, technically out of sign conjunction with Pluto. And something I've been talking about with many people recently is there's often this like dark storm cloud that comes to us figuratively sometime in July. I've noticed this for many years now. It used to be earlier in July, and gradually it's getting very gradually later and later in the month. But the reason why is because the sun passes through an opposition with Pluto every July. Because Pluto's been in Capricorn, now it's just recently moved into Aquarius. It makes this opposition between the sun and Pluto every July. And Pluto is very dark. Oppositions are intense. And, the sun is basically facing off with Pluto. And really, I think that's the most major, defining aspect, not only of this week, but also the previous week as well. This is something, like I said, we've been talking about this. So channeling in that Plutonian energy, facing off with that Pluto energy. Pluto channels up. Pluto's the god of the underworld, right? So that's very figurative. That's kind of a metaphor. It channels up things that were under the surface. So, maybe cold or mysterious truths that we don't often want to look at. Insecurities, fears, power struggles, things of that nature. Pluto is basically going to show you what is making you weak and what makes you powerful, whether you like it or not. Pluto is one of the most difficult planets to work with, in my opinion. It's very intense. It's a little bit like Saturn, but more emotionally intense. This is having to do with our instincts, our intuition at a very primal level. Okay. So as if that weren't enough, like I said, we always kind of experience this opposition between the sun and Pluto. But the event that happens on Sunday, July 21st is a full moon at 29 degrees Capricorn conjunct Pluto. So this is adding way more intensity to what would already be an intense event. Okay. The full moon conjunct Pluto is channeling in that Pluto energy even more so. And it's really bringing about this like face off, this opposition dynamic between not only the sun and Pluto, but Pluto conjunct the moon, both together facing off against the sun. And this full moon that just happened on Sunday is a really funky one because the moon being out of sign, moon at the last degree of Capricorn with Pluto at the first degree of Aquarius, moon is in detriment in Capricorn. So we have this full moon where the moon is still in detriment, but then it's also conjunct Pluto, even though Pluto is at the first degree of Aquarius. So that channels in even more weird and potentially dysfunctional energy. We've already been experiencing a lot of like dark themes. Pretty much everyone I know on a personal level is experiencing some kind of dark themes right now, or just weird energies. I think we've all felt it this past week. Even you can look at technological disruptions and deficiencies. That's very characteristic of Pluto and Aquarius. So these are the things that we've already been experiencing, and we will continue to experience even further. Yes, the full moon does technically happen just before this week, but the sun is still approaching that conjunction to, the opposition to Pluto. That's technically going to happen on Tuesday. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But yeah, so it's really, it's a funky week. We actually have a little bit to talk about, on most of the days this week. So let's just jump into it. So yeah, we start out the week still kind of recovering from that full moon. Even the chart for Monday, July 22nd, moon is cruising through Aquarius. So moon it's just coming off of that high, so to speak, from that full moon where it was conjunct Pluto. I always apply really wide orbs to lunar aspects. So in other words, even though you can see at noon Eastern Standard Time on Monday, moon is past halfway through the sign of Aquarius, I would still say we're still experiencing these like Pluto vibes and full moon vibes as well. So a lot of intensity, a lot of culminations. And this is really interesting considering Monday is the first day of Leo. So happy birthday, Leos. It's your time to shine. We are entering your time. You've probably already been shining for two reasons. One, because anyone with major Leo placements kind of always shines. That's their thing. They're radiant. They handle attention very well. They're charming. We know all the rest. But also, Leos have been shining because Mercury and Venus have already been transiting through Leo. So they've already been, showing that what we're desiring is lining up with Leo. We're desiring that confidence and that warmth. So it's really interesting considering, Sun entering Leo is typically a really nice, fun time. It would typically be really warm energies. Don't worry about anything. Let's just have fun and relax. It's summer, blah, blah, blah. But we have this, like I said, this dark, like storm cloud coloring what would typically be a really nice, fun time. That's not entirely bad. We can talk about the positives of that as well. But you can see that Monday, with Sun entering Leo, it's getting even closer to that opposition with Pluto. Technically, it won't be conjunct until Tuesday, but it's, pretty much exact. It's exact to the degree. So we're definitely experiencing this Monday. And like I said, even Sunday, that full moon was so close to the conjunction with Pluto. It's very Plutonian. It's yes, we do have Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Leo, but in a way, I think Pluto's almost stealing the show as we start out this week. So yeah, there are those Leo placements. On some level, we do want to have fun, and we want to be all sunshiny and like Leo and be very proud, and that energy does exist. It's just that it's facing off and contrasting with this much darker, much more intense, kind of larger scale heavy energy that is Pluto in Aquarius. So there could be really intense, like I said, heavy dysfunctions, turbulence. Look to where does 0 degrees Aquarius fall in your chart? Is it at the top of your chart? Is that at the bottom? Is it on the left side? It's by your ascendant, or is it at the right side? It's by your descendant. Where is that? If it's in some house that's not near the angles, like let's say for the first degree Aquarius is in your 8th house or 2nd house, it's not going to be as intense. But if 0 degrees Aquarius is near one of your, like your midheaven, your IC, your ascendant, or your descendant, I just did like a Catholic cross. Like I'm constantly gesturing when I'm doing these things, but anyway, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if those are related. But at any rate, if 0 degrees Aquarius is near one of those angles, your life is going to change in that particular area. If it's your ascendant, it has to do with yourself. If it's your IC, it's your home and family, etc. Look to where 0 degrees Aquarius falls in your chart. Even 0 degrees Leo, is a major part of this dynamic as well. So you can look to those places and what that part of your chart represents to see where a major change is happening for you, and where you may have to deal with major insecurities. What are your weaknesses? We may not like to look at that. We might like to sweep that under the rug. Pluto's not going to let you do that. Pluto's going to say, hey, this is what's making you weak. Like, you're believing that your power lies within something other than yourself. If Pluto has to, Pluto will symbolically kind of like take that away. Like if you believe like, oh, well, I'm successful because I've got the cool job, or I've got money, or I've got those, relationships with like cool people. A Pluto transit will take those things away, and it'll force you to realize your power doesn't lie within any of that. Your power is within yourself. Okay. So it can be a hard lesson to learn. It can be hard to deal with those insecurities, but by shining a light into the darkness, we become more self-aware. We become stronger, and we evolve. And that's what Pluto is all about. Really heavy stuff. I wish I had a lighter forecast to give you this week, but I don't control the weather. I just report it. Okay, next for Tuesday, July 23rd. Honestly, this is like the big day in my opinion. Usually the big day would be Sun entering Leo or something like that, but in my opinion, I would not downplay this Sun-Pluto opposition. Once Sun reaches the last part of the first degree of Leo, that's where it technically makes that exact opposition to Pluto. Sun moves about 1 degree a day. So this will be like relatively brief, I guess you could say. But at the same time, because we had that full moon involved, it's kind of dragging out. Like really, we're experiencing this for a week or so at least. Um, so anyway, so Tuesday might mark this like peak of intensity of those insecurities, power struggles, really dark themes, kind of coming up. The way that you handle this, by looking at things, we can kind of think like, what would a Scorpio do? Scorpio is the home sign of Pluto. It's the most obvious kind of sign that's connected to Pluto. Um, so what would a Scorpio do? Scorpios don't shy away from things. They face things head on. Like sometimes they can be secretive or, hide their intentions. But at the same time, like they go right into the problem or the situation. Like they want to figure things out, right? So that's what this Pluto energy is kind of asking of us. Scorpios are experts at this. The more passive types that want to just shy away and pretend everything's fine, that's not really going to fly with this kind of energy. It's just not. Even Leo is a very bold energy right now as well, or in general. So really that's, I think, the best approach to have with this kind of dynamic. It's not easy, but we have to roll with the punches. We have to adapt to the climate, to the weather, right? Astrologically speaking. Okay, so Tuesday is that peak intensity. I think astrology is equal parts adapting and doing what we can to embrace the energy. And honestly, I know this sounds kind of weird as an astrologer, but sometimes it's just about waiting it out. We have to just wait out. Regardless of what you're doing, Tuesday is going to be that peak intensity and that weird dark energy. That will fade away regardless of whether you learned from it or not. I think ideally we will learn and become stronger through this aspect, but honestly, that's your choice. You don't have to do that. You can just, if we really want to, we can sit around and feel sorry for ourselves, and this energy will pass. It's like a storm, okay? Anyway, let's go to, and I'm not suggesting that, I'm just saying the choice is yours. Like sometimes we don't know what to do. Sometimes we do have to just wait out the storm. Wednesday, I don't really have anything to talk about for Wednesday. I just wanted to show you the chart since there's almost one event per day this week. So I figured I'll just show you the chart for Wednesday just in case you're watching, in case you're curious. For Thursday, July 25th, 2024, Mercury enters Virgo. So now this is kind of becoming a part of a dynamic which is a little bit happier in nature. Honestly, I think things are going to lighten up a little bit by Thursday. And you may say, well, Mercury entering Virgo, isn't that a really heavy, analytical energy? Yes, it is. But Mercury's at home in Virgo. And now we've got, Sun has been in home in Leo really all week so far. So we're starting to get more domicile energies. Also, at this point, Moon has moved way past Pluto. Moon is in Aries. It's entering Aries by Thursday. So it's well past 2 entire signs away from Pluto. And also, even the sun is now at 3 degrees Leo. It's gradually moving away from that opposition to Pluto. It's still within orb, I would say. I mean, it's still only a couple degrees away. But even just that amount of separation it's showing that we are climbing down off of that peak of intensity with that Plutonian aspect. Things are mellowing out a little bit. And again, that domicile energy with Sun in Leo, Mercury in Virgo, these are energies that are universally easy for us to embrace. Things are more just as we would expect them to be when we have domicile energies, or in other words, when the planets enter their ruling signs, their home signs, things are just a little bit simpler. And I think we could all use that right now. We're in complicated times, intense times. We could use an easy or relatively simple transit like Sun in Leo or Mercury in Virgo. So do I like seeing a lot of detriment placements? Yeah, that can be fun in kind of a weird way. But exalted and domicile placements like this can be fun as well in an easy and simple way. So I think that'll be refreshing, honestly. And really, the chart seems kind of well balanced. We've got the fire with Sun and Venus in Leo. Mercury in Virgo brings that Earth. Mars, Jupiter in Gemini. The only thing really lacking is water right now, but we've recently had a lot of watery transits this past 6 months or so. So chart looks kind of balanced, which I think is a blessing after this intensity that we just went through. For Friday, July 26th, Chiron turns retrograde at 23 degrees Aries. What's interesting is Moon will actually pass over Chiron on this same day. So What I always say about Chiron is worth talking about in these forecasts, in my opinion, but not by much. I believe for some reason, like when you get into these much smaller bodies, these like comets and asteroids and things like that, do they have an effect? Yes. I mean, I know there's some people that get into like these little asteroids and they can find an astonishing amount of information. I'm not downplaying that at all. I do think that there's less like meaning though in them than like the major planets. So anyway, I'm just saying this because like Chiron turning retrograde, I do think that's worth talking about, especially because Moon is transiting over that same area today. But this would typically be kind of a subtle phenomenon, though. I think Chiron turning retrograde in Aries, I I hate to be, well, to kind of oversimplify it for a moment, I think this might be good because I've often described Chiron and Aries has made us a little bit like easily triggered since 2018 when Chiron entered Aries. We've been like offended and we've been intense. Our personal wounds, our histories, our traumas have been at the forefront, and we've all been a little bit, maybe from time to time, we've been a bit tactless about expressing those things because we're so passionate about, putting our story out there and things like that. I think that can be a very powerful energy. I think it can also be a destructive energy. This is all like tapering back though. Okay. When planets or asteroids, I forget, I think Chiron is a comet technically. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, when planets or whatever they are, when bodies, there should be, see, this is why the word planets is so easy just to talk about everything because we don't have a word for like heavenly bodies like that. Sounds too technical. But anyway, when they turn retrograde, it's kind of like they go to sleep or they go offline. Like they're still there, their energies are still affecting us, but in a more kind of subtle, ethereal, intuitive, like dreamy kind of way. A less active kind of way, less physical, more, I don't know, mental, emotional, dreamy. So with Chiron turning retrograde, I think this will just allow us to chill out a little bit. Like, yes, I hear your wounds. You've been hurt. I understand that. Maybe just like, I was gonna say take a Xanax, smoke a blunt. I don't know. I'm not suggesting whatever. I think that's kind of the energy here. Like, yes, I understand you come from a place of pain and suffering. I get that. But can we just mellow out for like one moment, while we process things? Let's process things. Let's look inward for a moment, right? Rather than like immediately just throwing everything outside of ourselves, like, and having everyone else deal with our wounds. You know what I mean? So I think this is a blessing. And Chiron is a weird energy. It's a weirdo. It's weird. It's awkward. It like, if you actually pay attention to Chiron transits, it's an awkward feeling. Like there's this almost like a social disharmony, which I know sounds counterintuitive because Chiron is supposed to be the wounded healer. So wouldn't you say, Chiron's all about healing everyone? It's very therapeutic and psychological. It's very empathetic. But those things can actually increase the awkwardness. I don't think we're ready to have like, to be telepathic and to read each other's minds all the time. Like, can you imagine actually doing that? What a nightmare that would be. I really think Chiron transits kind of get us a little bit closer to that, for better or for worse. Can those times be episodes of or opportunities for like increased healing and deep conversations? Absolutely. But can they also just be really awkward and uncomfortable, especially around people that were not comfortable, with that level of empathy? Absolutely. Especially with this whole like Chiron and Aries, which is it's a weird match. It's a weird transit. So with Moon crossing over Chiron as it turns retrograde, we may have kind of an intensity there as well. An intensity with either realizing our own wounds, communicating those wounds, doing a little bit of soul searching, or having increased empathy with others as well. It's a weird energy. I don't even know what to do with that. So let's just move on. Okay, and then lastly, for Saturday, July 27th, there's a third quarter moon with the moon in Taurus. Looks like this will happen very late in the day, Eastern Standard Time, because you can see even by noon, Eastern Standard Time, moon is at the last degree of Aries. So this won't happen till like late in the night, before midnight. That moon will enter Taurus, and then once it reaches 5 degrees Taurus, that's where you technically get that third quarter moon. This one's interesting Excuse me. This one's particularly interesting because basically, so with the third quarter moon, the moon and the sun are squaring. They are at odds to each other. This is one of the most, well, it's one of the four most major parts of the lunar cycle. This one in particular is interesting though because sun is in domicile in Leo, moon is exalted in Taurus. So both of them are facing off, but they're both very strong. Neither one is going to budge. They're both in fixed signs. So these energies, like the masculine energy and the feminine energy, are both very strong. They're both strong-willed. They're not looking to compromise, and they're both kind of facing off in this square. So that can be interesting. Third quarter moons in particular are more philosophical in nature, more abstract. So this is a time of kind of examining ourselves, examining our philosophies, and potentially making some kind of change. What do you need to change about your mentality, your philosophy, your way of understanding and relating to the world? What needs to be changed there? You may need to be active or make some kind of change in a physical way. That can be a part of this, but much of this is psychological, it's mental. And I was just mentioning this, we just had a psychological aspect on Friday with Chiron turning retrograde, conjunct the moon. And then now we get this third quarter moon 1 day later. So it's almost like we get this like hint of normalcy on Thursday, but then we just go into these other weird dynamics Friday and Saturday, if I'm being completely honest. It's at least not as heavy and intense as the start of the week, but it's still weird, it's awkward, and there needs to be some kind of change as we go into Saturday. I do think, though, that, yes, there is that maybe intense aspect, this aspect requiring change for us, the square between the sun and the moon. There is that can be a bit volatile. However, if you again look at how many planets are in domicile or exaltation, Neptune's in Pisces like it's been for a million years. Mercury's exalted, Sun is in domicile. Venus doesn't do too bad in Leo either, in my opinion. Jupiter is in detriment. Uranus is in fall. So we've got a couple of planets that are out of place. But now with Moon, so basically Moon, Sun, and Mercury are all like personal placements. They're all inner solar system, and they're all either exalted or in domicile. So Saturday's a mixed bag. It's like, yes, there is a need for change. We might be a little bit in our heads. We need to, do some soul searching, as I say. But at the same time, we've got these strong energies supporting us. Things are kind of complicated, but also simple. Like, for instance, with Sun and Leo, the masculine energy is very strong. It's kind of what we would expect of it. We want to express ourselves. We want to have fun. We want to have a good time. With Mercury and Virgo, we are capable of being very analytical, obtaining information and digesting that information in an efficient way. And with Moon and Taurus, the feminine energy is very strong as well. We can have empathy, but also strong boundaries. It's kind of a happy medium emotionally. So if you look at it that way, there's really a lot going for us, especially with these earthy, Moon and Taurus and Mercury and Virgo vibes. I think that's bringing a little bit of practicality and like groundedness, which is very much needed after these weird transits that we've had this week. And that's pretty much what I have. I'll show you the chart for Sunday, July 28th, but there aren't any like major aspects that I wanted to talk about today. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. But yeah, it's a weird week. I'm not gonna lie. I don't hate it. I don't hate these transits for us, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't weird. So I really hope you have a fantastic week. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I hope you join me for next week's forecast. Have a great day.